Welcome to the Foul Play YouTube channel, Reading with the Crew.
Thank you so much there, Jack61. It's great to be here as always. And again, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Your support is very heartfelt, and thank you so much. Look, everyone, for those who are new, my name is Dr. Silkman, and I'm from the Foul Play team, and I live in Adelaide, South Australia. And joining me tonight or today or wherever you're from is our esteemed panel. We have a lot to cover today. So, guys, I'm not going to waste any time. I want to introduce our panel members. First of all, we have Jack61. Jack61, welcome.
Hey, thanks, Doc, and welcome everyone out there in the live chat. It's going to be good. It's going to be a ripper.
Thank you so much, Jack61. Next, we have Andy B. Andy B, welcome.
Thank you very much, Doc, and welcome to you as well, and everyone on the panel and in chat. I'm looking forward to this ripper. I really am. Let's go for it.
Thank you so much, Andy B. Next, we have I Don't Recall. Welcome.
Thank you. Hi, everybody, and welcome to Reading with the Crew.
Thank you so much, I Don't Recall. Next, we have Susan. Susan, welcome.
Thank you, Doc. Hi, everybody. Looking forward to this ripper, as they say. As
awesome,
you say.
Awesome. Yeah, it's going to be a ripper. Thank you so much, Susan. And next, we have Just Rhonda. Just Rhonda, welcome.
Thank you, Doc. Thank you, everybody on panel. It's good to be here. And yeah, I just started a rumor in the chat that Ripper's going to be here because I don't know what all this Ripper stuff's about. So that's just me starting a rumor, folks.
Thank you so much, Just Rhonda. And look, guys, for those who are new to the channel, welcome. We appreciate your presence very, very much. We do this for you guys. But as Jack61 has placed up on the YouTube, we're actually doing this for Teresa Hallbach, who tragically lost her life at a tender age of 25 years old, very likely on the 31st of October, 2005. And at the Foul Play team, we're very passionate. We don't always agree with each other, but we work very, very hard together as a team to essentially find out the truth of what happened that horrible, horrible day. We do believe in the innocence of both Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey. We do believe that they were set up to take the fall for the murder of Teresa Hallbach. But we, as a team, collectively as a team, we want to work hard and do research and follow the truth. Go to the truth, right, guys? No matter where it leads, good, bad, or otherwise. We owe it to Teresa and her family. And we also owe it to Stephen and Brendan Dassey to get to the truth, no matter where it lies. Well, look, guys, again, welcome. And if I tell you what, Susan, are you able to read out who's actually has joined us so far in chat? And Jack61, are you able to put up the very first slide as well? Thank you so much, Susan. Who's joined us?
Sure, Doc. The French Wrecking Crew stopped by earlier.
Awesome.
We have TJ Anderson. Gloria is with us. Dark Side of the Moon, of course. Jasnaz Gaming.
Welcome.
Let's see. Andy B. He's on the panel. Rhonda SD. She was at the London rally today. Thank you, Rhonda, for standing in the rain today. Support
Fantastic.
the boys.
Yes.
Man's Life 7. Mystic Jinx is peeking in. Anthony D is here. Kelly McAlien is with us.
Fantastic. Welcome, guys.
See, Katie did it. Hi, Katie. Graham Moss has joined us. Hello, Graham.
Welcome.
Let's see. Did I say Anthony Hills? Rumor has
Yeah.
it, Clive Coolidge is with us.
Welcome, guys.
That's all I see for now.
Fantastic. Well, look, guys, thank you so much, Susan. What we'll do, we're going to make a start. And for those who are new, we're going to be continuing our Reading with the Crew series. We're on episode 39 at the moment. And for those who have been following, we've been reading parts from chapters from John Ferak's book, The Wrecking Crew. And what we've done collectively as a team is that we've greatly expanded the material present in the chapter that we're doing, chapter 14, entitled Canine Noses. We're on part 16, and we've added a lot of material. It's really amazing how we have been able to collectively deep dive into this particular chapter. And the material that we're finding is just absolutely amazing. Well, look, guys, if you enjoy what we do, as always, please subscribe to our channel. Put your DNA on the thumbs up button. I promise Colhane won't get access to your DNA and genomic profile. And please share our podcasts. The team here works very, very hard. We do it for free. And we do it for you guys. We also do it, of course, for Teresa, Stephen, and Brendan and their respective families. Please share our podcasts if you can. And also hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of our podcasts and special presentations. Now, look, today, guys, it's going to be an absolute ripper. And the reason why is that we're going to be deep diving essentially into Stephen Avery's burn pit and the events that took place. In today's podcast, we're going to be focusing on a particular individual. And I think you'll agree by the end of the podcast why we're focusing so much on this particular person. And that's Sergeant Jason Jost. We're going to be spending a lot of time on him. We're also going to be examining white buckets, bone fragments, and also the burn pit. All right. So Jack 61, are we able to have a look at the next slide, please? Now, of course, we're not accusing anyone of doing anything nefarious. We're just going to be examining the material as we see it. Now, as you know, we have spent at the foul play team, we have spent a long time looking at the forensic evidence. Now, if you have a look at this slide here, now you can understand the case against Stephen, right? It's a very, very challenging and difficult one because, as we know, on November the 5th, Pam Sturm, sometimes called Pam of God, she found the Teresa's Toyota RAV4 on the Avery salvage yard on the morning of November the 5th. Now, the RAV4, as you know, guys, contains the DNA of both Stephen Avery, and the DNA of Teresa Hallbach. So you have suspect and victim, their DNA is present in the same vehicle. That's quite damning against Stephen. But furthermore, if you have a look at the picture on the right, this is the burn pit, Stephen Avery's infamous so-called burn pit. This particular photograph was taken on November the 6th by Trooper Reese. Why is this image so important? Because if you have a look at the image, there's no police tape, right? Clearly, no one is interested at all in the burn pit at this stage, right? And you can see a Calumet officer's car in the distance, but no one is milling around the burn pit, right? And we've looked at this picture at least 1,000 times more. And Jack 61 has even gone right deep into the burn pit by exploding it up. And there is absolutely no presence or pile of bones anywhere. And that's very, very important because all of a sudden, bones were found 2 days later on November the 8th, bone fragments were discovered in the grass and also in the burn pit, which is very, very interesting. So something has occurred between November the 6th and November the 8th. Jack 61.
Doc, do you think that would qualify as a Manitowoc miracle?
It's definitely a Manitowoc miracle. And, the thing is, I'm sure a lot of the officers, correct me if I'm wrong, but they were not aware of the pictures taken by Trooper Reese on November the 6th.
Oh, I completely agree with that, Doc.
Yep. And this actually proved to be quite embarrassing because remember, throughout the trial testimonies, they could only show pictures that were taken on November the 6th, right? As we know, regrettably, no in situ photographs of the bone fragments or burn pit were taken on November the 8th. There were pictures taken later by Pevito's team, but not when the bone fragments were found. And this is actually quite damning. Right. So as we've shown in this picture here, we have the victim's vehicle present on the Avery salvage yard, but just as damning, we have the victim's cremains present in Stephen Avery's burn pit. Right? So all of this evidence collectively, and there's others, of course, is very damning against Stephen Avery. So as a defense attorney, you have to account for these, right? For the RAV4, for the cremains, and the other pieces of forensic evidence. Now, if you're going to plant something, right? If you're going to plant something, there's a couple of criteria that you absolutely need. First of all, you need access, right? You need access to the forensic evidence from the victim, and in this case, Teresa Hallbach. You can't plant something if you don't have access to it, right, guys? It's as simple as that. Also, just as important is that you need opportunity to leave that forensic evidence without suspicion, right? That's important. Like, for example, you can't just drive the RAV4 on the property in broad daylight and 20 people have seen you drive it. It has to be an opportunity and without suspicion, right? So you must have access to that forensic material. You must have the opportunity to leave it, right? But just as important, you must have that forensic evidence easily discovered, right? You can't hide the forensic evidence. It has to be easily discoverable, hopefully by a law enforcement officer, right? Now, in the RAV4, in the case of the RAV4, we had a volunteer searcher find the RAV4. She phoned up Sheriff Pagel and everyone came on down, right? So you have to have a just cause to have a search warrant. Now, at the Foul Play team, through open mic, reading with the crew, we have spent a long time talking about the RAV4, right? And how likely it was planted on the Avery salvage yard. But bone fragments are a little bit more challenging because if the bone fragments were planted, someone had to have access to it. To those cremains, someone had to have placed them within the burn pit, right? And you must ensure that what you plant is inculpatory. In other words, inculpatory for your targeted suspect. So guys, can you see potentially how damning those cremains, human cremains are that allegedly had been found in Stephen Avery's burn pit? Jack 61.
And again, they had to be found as well. There you couldn't, it's just like the RAF. These things had to be found to make the connection to, destroy Stephen Avery.
100% correct. Now, I'm just going to go around the panel and also people in chat. I want you to answer yes or no. And I'll go around the panel and in chat. Do you believe that Teresa's Toyota RAV4 and her cremains were planted? Yes or no? Andy B.
Yes.
Okay. I don't recall.
Yes.
Susan.
Yes, 100%. Yes.
Jack 61.
Yes, absolutely.
Just Rhonda.
Yes.
Yep. And myself as well. Now, I'll tell you why. What we're going to do in this episode is we're going to deep dive and we're going to prove that one person had both access and opportunity. It's going to blow your mind, right? Absolutely blow your mind. So most people in chat definitely said planted, which is very, very interesting. All right. So Jack 61, are we able to have a look at the next slide, which is A2? Now, I've spent, and also the Foul Play team and many members on Discord have spent a lot of time on this aspect. And this particular individual, again, I'm not accusing anybody of doing anything, but Jason Jost, we need to deep dive in. He's a very, very interesting individual. I didn't know much about him, right? Now, it's interesting that if I go around the panel from 1 to 10 and also people in chat, how much did you know about Jason Jost before this podcast? Rating from 1 to 10. Andy B, how much did you know about Jason Jost?
I'd say 0, actually.
Zero? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't recall.
About 1 or 2, not much.
Okay. Susan?
Well, I knew that he supposedly spotted the first bone.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember a lot more than that, actually.
Okay. Jack 61.
Doc, probably a 3, 4, something like that, but no more. I
Yep.
really didn't do much deep diving on Jason.
Yep. Just Rhonda?
I would say about a 1.
Yep. That's incredible, guys. That's absolutely incredible. For me, probably about a 2 or a 3 before I deep dived into Jason Jost. Now, and most people in the chat, jeepers, about 0 to -5. So it's not, it's just incredible. This guy, Jason Jost, you'll see, did a Bushman, a Mike Bushman. I never thought it was possible, but he did. So why is Jason Jost so interesting and important? First of all, he was not called up as a witness in either the Stephen Avery pre-trial or either the Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey trials. Never called up as a witness. At the time, in 2005, he was a sergeant for the MTSO, right? Now that's interesting in itself. He doesn't write a CASO report at all, right? He does a cold burn. Very, very little information. And in fact, guys, let me know. Has anyone ever seen a report from Mike Bushman? Jack 61.
No report from Bushman, but there is an interesting phone call we played not too long ago between
Yes.
Jost and Sipple. A very interesting call.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. There is no doubt. And again, this is the power of being in a team. And that is we can accumulate a lot of information, a lot of different multimedia aspects from reports to phone calls, and we can all put it together, right? So it's just not one document, one call. It's an accumulation of all those things that we can present. And as a team, we try to present the material as it is, not our words, but their own words and actions. And there's something definitely going on with Sergeant Jason Jost, right? So he doesn't write a case or report at all. But what he does do is he writes a very, very descriptive MTSO report. It's one of the most detailed reports I've ever seen about the burn pit. Guys, would you agree? He absolutely lists everything about the burn pit in greater detail than was necessary. Jack 61.
Absolutely, he did. It's really kind of a red flag to me.
It is. And remember the phone call that you played about
Yep.
the fact that he wasn't going to write anything.
That's right.
But I think
Not till Jost got up in his ass and like, oh yeah, you gotta do some stuff.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. So that is a massive red flag, as I've got here. Now, why is Jost so potentially important? Well, listen to this, guys, and we'll discuss it. Jason Jost was part of Search Team A. Now, you might be thinking, well, who the hell was in Search Team A? How about this for some names? There was Deputy Mike Bushman. He was semi-retired. He was called back. Mike Bushman is MTSO. In Search Team A, there was Deputy David Siders, MTSO. In Search Team A, there was Sergeant Scott Seglob, MTSO. Now remember guys, who called up Seglob on November the 6th? Who was it? Who called him up?
Sawinski.
Tom
Sawinski. Yeah.
Tom Sawinski on November the 6th. And we don't know because we don't have any record of it, but according to Kathleen Zellner and also Sawinski, he talked about seeing two individuals pushing a RAV4 onto the Avery salvage yard. They were on Avery Road, right? So we have Scott Seglob. He's from MTSO, and Sergeant Jason Jost, also at the MTSO. They were part of Search Team A that formed on November the 7th. And guys, where did Search Team A go? Anyone want to have a guess? Where did they go? Jack 61.
They started in the Redont pit and moved. I don't remember the direction. Maybe north, but I don't remember. But nonetheless, it was towards the cul-de-sac at Cuss Road. They moved from the
Correct.
pit, spaced not too far apart, and walked towards the cul-de-sac through that wooded area.
Correct. So these four guys happen to be at the hotbed of activity, Cuss Road, right? But it actually gets better than that, right? So on November the 7th, we have the so-called clandestine burial site at Cuss Road. Later on November the 7th, we have the burnt electronics that were found by David Siders in Stephen Avery's burn barrel, right? But a couple of very interesting events occurred, right? So we've already discussed that Jost on November the 7th was part of Search Team A. Their boss was Mike Bushman. And I'll prove to you and others know here on the panel that Mike Bushman was a canine dog handler, right? In the past, he had his dog called Duke. I'm not sure whether Duke was still alive at the time, but he was a canine dog handler. Now, what is interesting? Now, think about this. We have a murder investigation going on, right? A murder investigation going on. And remember, guys, both Fassbender and Wiegert, especially Fassbender, had complained that they didn't have enough people on the ground to assist in the investigation. Right, Jack 61? Right, guys? I'm not imagining it. That was a number one complaint, Jack 61.
Oh yeah, I mean that was a part of that reply that has become so infamous to us that Tom Fallon penned in response to a motion that Buting and String had filed, and that was in his reply was in September, middle of September 2006.
Correct.
A-
Correct.
And that
Correct.
that
Excuse me.
was that was also their excuse for Lincoln Colburn searching the trailer.
Yep.
Correct. Correct. Now,
Um,
now listen to. Sorry, Susan.
That's it.
Okay. Now listen to this. In the middle of a murder investigation, Jason Jost, who's part of Search Team A, was asked to feed the dogs. Right? In the middle of a murder investigation, he's suddenly asked to feed the dogs on the Avery salvage yard. There were 3 dogs. 2 belonged to Barb and 1 belonged to Stephen. And that dog, of course, was Bear. Right? So in the middle of a murder investigation, suddenly Jason Jost is asked to feed the dogs. Now, when Jason Jost goes to try and feed Bear, what does he notice? He notices the burn pit. Wow. So in the middle of a murder investigation, he suddenly asked, I was told to go and feed the dogs, right? So he notices the burn pit. Now, I know this is going to get Susan really upset, but this is what Jason Jost said. On November the 8th, at about 1:30 in the afternoon, so this is one day after he feeds the dogs, about 1:30 p.m., he spots a bone fragment. That bone fragment is about 1 inch in length. And remarkably, it has been marked with a red flag. So there's a red flag in the grass, and according to Jason Jost and others, that bone fragment is 8 feet south. So it's not in the burn pit, it's in the grass near the burn pit. And what Jason Jost does repeatedly is that he strongly suggests to anyone that would listen that they need to examine and search the burn pit. Jack 61.
Well, my question is, who put the red flag in the ground?
Yes. Oh, yes. Don't worry. We'll get to that. So remember, on November the 6th, there are detectives, there are law enforcement officers all around the burn pit. Trooper Reese photographs the burn pit. Trooper Reese is actually very close to the burn pit, never mentions a bone, never mentions a foul smell, nothing. Suddenly, after Jason Jost goes and feeds Bear, and I'll put that in air quotes, feeds Bear, he suddenly notices a bone fragment in the grass on November the 8th. And he tells everyone who's there, I think we need to examine the burn pit. And prior to that, no one saw a thing. And we've seen the photographs, Jack 61 has put them up. There are no bone fragments anywhere, right? But one important clue is that Jason Jost keeps on saying that Bear is aggressive, right? And that's exactly what Ken Kratz echoes during Stephen Avery's trial, that no bone fragments were found because Bear prevented or shooed away the investigators. Jack 61.
Yeah, and talk about the burn pit. There's certainly no pile of bones, as Sturdivant testified to. It's just not there. There's also, I want to bring this up. There is a photo. You guys will remember it. Allegedly of bone being intertwined with these steel belts from the radial tires.
Oh, yeah.
But please, someone point out to me in that photo from Reese on November 6th where the fuck that come from, because it's not there. I know that's not a high, 50 meg quality picture, but you would see that, and it's not there.
Yeah. No, and don't worry, we're going to go over that, Jack 61. So all of a sudden, out of nowhere, We don't even know who asked him to go and feed the dogs. It could have been just a ruse, and I think it really was a ruse, right? Because remember, on that day, on November the 7th, Siders, who's part of Search Team A, discovers the burnt electronics in Stephen Avery's burn barrel, right, guys? Jason Jost decides somebody told him he has to go and feed the dogs in the middle of a murder investigation. Jack 61.
Yeah, just one more thought here, while we're talking about this. Everyone, please remember that Carla Chase had called on the 6th about coming to get the animals, all of them. I guess that they had
Yes,
already gotten one or two, but she wanted to come and get the rest because they didn't know when they were going to be allowed back on, and the
yes,
family was worried about feeding the dogs and the cats,
correct,
and basically
correct,
she was told no at that point. And I wonder why.
correct,
I mean, were they waiting on Bear to, go, do his business? I don't know.
correct. And again, guys, don't worry, we're going to go through all of this. So keep in mind that Jason Jost was part of a very important search team. They're at Cuss Road. And we've covered Cuss Road at least 50 times. And we've shown you that there's a huge amount of activity at Cuss Road. According to the state, nothing happened at Cuss Road. Nothing, right? So what is interesting is that Jason Jost actually helps and assists the crime lab in sifting the burned pit, the ash from the burned pit. So not only is he there one day prior, he discovers the very first bone fragment. He points the burn pit to everyone that would listen, that it definitely needs to be looked at. And suddenly he helps sift the burn pit, and oh my God, they find human remains. So isn't that remarkable, guys? So Jack 61, guys, do we have any questions or comments so far? Jack
I haven't,
61.
yeah, I haven't seen anything in chat, but I really haven't been watching that too close. I did want to bring up that Forensic Files episode that I shared with you guys,
Oh, yes.
and
Jack 61.
I'll link it, or I'll link, or I'll type out which episode I'm talking about. But it's a very interesting episode, and it's pretty old actually. This this case that it references is about a girl that her ex-boyfriend he choked her, killed her, and then him and a buddy cut her up, dismembered her, put her in
Mm-hmm.
his grandparents' fire pit, cremated her, and they distributed these bones. This happened actually not too far from me. So they distributed these bones along the highway, but there was in their process of cleaning up, they dumped a bunch of these little small bone fragments into his grandparents' sump pump. Well, these detectives, forensic people,
Yes.
found that shit and they examined it, and I was blown away about how simple it would have been for
Simple.
Eisenberg, to have said
Yep.
yes, human, no animal. Oh my
Correct.
God! Anyway, I'll link it.
Correct. And not only that, Jack 61, but the incredible thing was, how did they prove that she was in that house? By finding one drop of blood on the
That's right.
wallpaper.
That's right.
One drop of blood on the wallpaper. And this is back probably even before 2005, I think this case was.
Oh, I think it was
They
90,
found,
93, I think. 90,
yep,
early
it
90s,
was
I think.
very early. Yep. And they did primitive DNA analysis, but it proved that the girl that was murdered was in that house. And what is unbelievable is that all they had to do was place the bones under a microscope, and the forensic anthropologist could tell the difference between a human and an animal bone, right? That's all Dr. Eisenberg had to do, but she refused to do it. Now, if we have a look at the next slide, Jack 61, this is truly remarkable. Now, remember, Jason Jost, out of the blue, said that he had to feed the dogs on November the 7th. But look what happened. Something very interesting happened on November the 6th. So I looked at the login, logout sheets, and lo and behold, and this was actually pointed out during a Discord chat as well, which goes to show we've got some incredible members who come on our Discord channel and discuss these things, which is fantastic. Both Carla Avery and Barb Yunder checked into the Avery salvage yard at 7:10, right? 7:10 in the evening on November the 6th. And then at about 7:40, they left, right? So what did they do? So Jack 61, can we have a look at the next slide, please? Right? So think about it. There was a heavy law enforcement presence on the Avery salvage yard. They didn't want anyone walking in or walking out, but both Carla Avery and Barb Yunder were at the Avery salvage yard. So a DCI report was written about this. Susan, do you see the report? Do you see page B2?
Yes, Doc.
Would you like to read it? And guys, pay close attention. This is crucial. Let's go for it.
On Sunday, November 6, 2005, at approximately 7:30 p.m., at the request of Special Agent Thomas Fassbender, Kim Skurlinski, and Kevin Heimerl, and James Sealer, met with Barbara Yonda and her niece, Carla Avery, who is the daughter of Charles Chuck Avery, at the Avery Auto Salvage, 12928 Avery Road, Two Rivers. This is the location of ongoing search warrant execution for Teresa Halbach, who has been missing since October 31, 05. Fassbender requested that Skurlinski allow Barb and Carla onto the property, but not into any buildings. This was done in order for them to feed and water 3 dogs on the property, 2 behind Barb's house and 1 behind her brother Stephen Avery's house, and to allow Barb to take her cat out of the residence. Previously, Barb had been interviewed by Special Agent James Holmes, and she made the request during the interview. Skurlinski, Heimerl, and Sealer escorted Barb and Carla from Barb's vehicle, which remained parked on Avery Road just past the squad car where the entry log was being maintained. They were escorted to the 2 residences, and so they take care of the dogs and cats. The dog food was located just inside the door of Barb's garage. Barb was also allowed to open the door of her residence and call out her cat's name, and the cat came to her. At Barb's request, Skurlinski and Heimerl then entered her residence to retrieve a cat leash and cat food. While walking back to Barb's vehicle, Skurlinski asked Barb how long her maroon van, which Stephen was trying to sell for her through Auto Trader, had been sitting in front of her residence. She said it had been there at least a week and a half and had not moved during that time. Barb was asked about the black and red Chevy Blazer at the corner of Avery Road and the access road to her residence. She said that is Stephen's Blazer and has been sitting there for several weeks. Barb said he is trying to sell the Blazer and the Pontiac Grand Prix located across the road from the Blazer. Barb was allowed to check her mailbox, but she did not have any mail. Gee, I wonder why. Barb also made a request for a change of clothes for herself and her 4 boys. Skurlinski said he would forward that request to Fassbender. Barb and Carla left the Avery Auto Salvage property at approximately 8:10 p.m.
Right. Thank you so much, Susan. So here's the point, right? Both Carla and Barb went to the Avery salvage yard on November the 6th, and they fed the dogs, right? Now,
Yep.
as Jack 61 said, they didn't know how long they were not going to come back, basically to feed the animals. So I dare say that they would have left a lot of food and water for the dogs. Guys, would you agree? They wouldn't have just given them 2 or 3 scoops. they would have ensured that they had left a lot of food for those dogs. Guys, would you agree?
Yeah, I would think so,
Yeah.
Doc. Extra anyway. I mean, some dogs you have to watch because they'll just eat until they're sick.
Yep, correct,
Some
correct.
and some dogs will just eat, until they're, I guess, satisfied. But yeah, I'd agree.
Yep, also, yeah. And the other important point is this, and I want to thank Duke11, who's in chat. Thank you so much. He pointed out, and we found the DCI report, that believe it or not, Barb returned to the Avery salvage yard on November the 8th to feed the dogs again. I never was aware of this. And this goes to show the power of the community in our Discord chat. Individuals are coming up with some fantastic findings, right, guys? I was not aware that Barb had returned back to the Avery salvage yard on November the 8th to refeed the dogs. And guess who accompanied Barb? Steve and Avery
Stephen.
did.
Yep.
Stephen did. But did they allow Steve to come back on the property?
Oh, hell no.
No. They kept Stephen at the checkpoint. And my theory is this. I think it was just a ruse for them to come back on November the 8th to feed the dogs. I have a feeling they wanted to come back to find out what the hell was going on. Guys, would you agree? Because they were kept out. They were clueless as to what was happening at the Avery salvage yard. So I think Barb and Carla would have left buckets of food for the dogs because they didn't know when they're coming back. So have a look at this. November the 6th, we have Carla and Barb feeding the animals. On November the 7th, suddenly, Jason Jost is told, go feed the animals. Somebody must have forgotten that they already had been fed. And on November the 8th, Barb comes back to the Avery salvage yard with Stephen, who's kept at the checkpoint, to go and refeed the dogs again, right? So this is remarkable that the dogs must have been really well fed. So guys, do we have any comments so far? Do we have any questions in chat, guys? Jack 61.
I just want to make a couple of comments, and this is sort of a keep in mind kind of thing for everyone. Remember that the crime lab people got to the Avery salvage yard on the afternoon of November 5th.
Correct.
And I highly suspect now, and I guess I'd put some stock in it before, but never really put like a fine point on it, that Ertl had made very clear note of that burn pit and what happened later and his refusal to take any fucking photos.
Take photographs. Correct.
Yep.
Yeah, 100% correct. There is something really weird that has happened at that burn pit. John Ertl knows what took place, in my opinion, and it has kept his mouth shut, right? Now, let's delve into this even more. So, Jack 61, can we have a look at the next slide, please? This is C1. I think the biggest clue or clues comes from what Jason Jost wrote down in his MTSO report. These are gold nuggets. Pay attention, guys. Just Rhonda, do you see the slide, C1?
Yes, I do.
Would you like to read it, please? This is Jason Jost's MTSO report, part of it. Let's go for it, guys.
On 11/7/05, I was asked to feed the dogs which were present on Stevens' property and also at the residence to the east of Stevens. I remember seeing the burn pile at that time while I was feeding the German Shepherd, which was tied up behind Stevens' garage. I noticed there were some items tangled in the cable of that the dog was fastened to. While feeding the dogs, MTPD officer Joseph Koning and MTPD officer Wilderdink assisted me. Due to the aggressiveness of the German Shepherd, I was unable to retrieve the 5-gallon pails which were placed next to the kennel, this being where the food and water are kept. We were able to keep the German Shepherd far enough away from us so that I could pour some food on the ground and also fill up a small water dish.
All right. Did you see what he wrote? He goes, I
Yep.
could pour some food on the ground and also fill up a small water dish, Susan.
But that food was not from the 5-gallon buckets because he was unable to retrieve those. That's what he said.
Okay. Interesting. Anything else, Susan?
I don't know. When I read this the first time, it was my impression that maybe this is when he dumped the bones in the pit and said he was pouring food for the dog far enough away. I don't know. It's possible.
Okay. But the important thing is this: bear is aggressive, right? So if bear's aggressive, there's no way they're going to get close to bear due to his aggressiveness. And note what he says. They were unable to retrieve the 5-gallon pails and they poured some food on the ground, right? According to Jason Jost, right? So Jack 61, are we able to have a look at the next slide, please? So let's have a look at the veracity of Jason Jost's statement. Let's see if it actually holds water, right? So the burn pit was photographed, or parts of the burn pit were photographed, and this photograph is from November the 11th, right? This is an infamous day, guys, because on November the 11th, that's when they bring in the skid steers, the bobcats, to totally demolish the burn pit. Now, in this photograph, you can see, and Jack 61 has put it up, in Bear's chain that he was tied up to, there's a whole lot of crap that's been caught up in it. And lo and behold, what do we see? We see some tire wire or tire cords that are all intertwined in the dog leash, right? So this poor dog was carrying all this extra junk in his dog leash, right? No wonder he had a hard time, right? So what Jason Jost said was correct. But you know what it also indicates? It indicates that Jason Jost was very, very close to Bear. Guys, would you agree? Because Jason Jost was able to observe what was tangled up in Bear's leash. Jack 61.
Absolutely agree. He had to be relatively close.
Yes. So he was close to Bear because he could see what was entangled in his leash. But guys, Jack 61, if you could zoom out a little bit, right, look what you see at the kennel, at Bear's kennel. If Jack 61 zooms out, right at Bear's kennel is the white bucket. And this is going to be absolutely crucial. So that white bucket, you can see it. It's on November the 11th. It's present. Susan.
Also in that report that was just read, it said something like we were able to keep Bear
away.
And
Away.
how was that? How were they able to do that?
All they probably did was pat him because he was not aggressive.
Exactly.
And guys, listen to this, right? If he poured some food on the ground, it meant that he had to have poured food so Bear can get access to it, correct?
Exactly.
There's no point in putting food 5 meters away from his mouth because the poor dog's never going to reach it. So hence, notice what he said. We had to keep bear at a distance so we can pour some food on the ground and pour some water so he can eat and drink. Now, not forgetting that one day prior, Carla and Barb already fed Bear, and they would have left a lot of food for Bear. They wouldn't have just put a little bit, they would have put a lot because they didn't know when they're coming back. So it makes me question whether that event actually took place. So how come suddenly they were able to feed Bear if he's aggressive and won't let them anywhere near him? There's something not right here, right? So Jack 61, can we have a look at the next slide, please? Now, this is going to blow your mind. And again, we'll just wait for slide C3. So as you can see, Bear had material stuck in his leash. He was dragging around tire wire and all other bits and pieces. Now, Brother Yuriz pointed out this picture to me. And have a look at this. Look at the kennel. What's missing from the kennel? What is absent? What
The
don't you
bucket's
see?
not there. But this
The-
is the 6th, right?
Correct.
So this is
Correct.
still daylight. So Barb hasn't been there yet to feed Bear.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Correct. So this is November the 6th, fairly early on during the day. I think this photo, I'm not 100% who the photographer was. It could have been Trooper Reese. I'll have to double check. But what you can see in the foreground is a small white bucket. Jack 61.
Yeah, this would probably have to be Reese or Judge, one of the two.
Yeah, one of the two. This is a crop, so I've cropped in the image, and you can clearly see there is no large white bucket, right? And so you can see the small little bucket at the front, but nothing towards the back. So this is November the 6th. So Jack 61, can we have a look at the next slide, please? And if there are any questions, please read them out if there are any questions in chat. So on November the 6th, in the morning, early hours, there's no white bucket. Now, this is a photograph of Trooper Reese from Trooper Reese. And you can see the burn pit straight from this position here, right? And again, there is no white bucket at all. And the reason why this picture is so important is because it is close to the septic tank cover at the Yonder residence. And remember what Joanne Mignon and others wrote, that they were observing the pumping of the septic tank and they could observe the burn pit from that position. And they were telling the truth. So from where they were standing, they can directly see the burn pit. But not only that, they could also see the activity of the dogs, the cadaver dogs and the scent dogs, right? So from that position, they could observe the burn pit, right? And of course, they would have observed Bear as well, right? So Jack 61, if we can have a look at the next slide. I actually found the septic tank cover, right? So again, this is a picture. We'll just wait for the next photo. This is photo C5. Have a look at this, guys. I found the septic tank cover, right? So you know that the guys came down from the waste disposal and pumped out the tank. Now, Joanne Mignon was standing in this position here. You can clearly see the burn pit. But notice what's behind the burn pit? The berm. That berm, which is behind the burn pit. And guess where the animals went to? Where did they go to? Instead of going to the burn pit, where did they all run to?
They went to the berm, the tracking dogs and the cadaver dogs. They were very interested.
the cadaver dogs and the scent dogs went to the berm behind the burn pit. And we'll talk about that in a second. So, guys, you can see that Joe and Mignon and others had a perfect view of what the dogs were doing. Furthermore, because remember, the guy that was pumping out the tank had to stop because the dogs went through. But the dogs didn't make a beeline for the burn pit. They went behind to the berm. And remember, Jack 61, you mentioned about the fact that maybe the RAV4 or Teresa could have been attacked or whatever at that location, because both the cadaver dogs and the scent dogs showed high interest, not in the burn pit, but in the berm. And look where the berm is. Right behind Jack 61.
Yeah, I mean, when we were talking about this, last week, I just trying to work out in my mind why both cadaver dogs and scent dogs would go to the berm. Now, we can theorize, we can't prove anything, but clearly we know for sure the scent dogs were scented with Teresa's scent. So, okay, that's
Correct.
Teresa. But the cadaver
Correct.
dogs, they just look for biological decay. So it could
Correct.
be. So, I mean, to me, just try to working something out. If Teresa was running and made it to that point, for whatever reason, and was attacked and possibly killed there, okay, that explains both. However, it could have been someone else, and that becomes a bigger problem. I mean, to me it does, because they didn't open any other kind of investigation about whatever these human bones potentially could have been over in the quarry, and I think also at Cuss Road, but that's another conversation.
Correct. But there is another possibility.
Yep.
And that is the movement of the cremains and other items from Cuss to the Avery salvage yard. Guys, do you understand?
I agree.
The dogs could have picked up how they came onto the property, correct?
That's right, because it would be relatively short distance between Cuss Road across that berm to Avery's pit.
Yep.
It's right there.
Correct. So scent dogs are specific for Teresa Hallbach. Specific. Cadaver dogs detect human decomposition. When you have cadaver dogs and scent dogs all congregate on one area, that's 2 red flags. That means that Teresa Hallbach and her biological material, breakdown of biological material, were there. Wait a minute. What the hell are those items doing at the berm? Right? The state's saying that Teresa Hallbach never left the property. This cannot be right. Something weird is going on. So the importance of this picture is to show you that anyone standing near that sewer grate had a perfect view of the burn pit, bear, and the behavior of the cadaver and scent dogs. Guys, would you agree? How good is this picture by Trooper Reese? Right, guys? Amazing.
Another gold mine.
How many times have you stared at this picture and never put 2 and 2 together? Me puts up hand.
Me dozens of times. Hey,
correct.
Doc, we have a question. I think we can briefly get to. Anthony Hill says, did Bobby work on the graveyard shift on the night of November 4th? Was it 2100 to 400 hours, I guess? I think he was off that night. I think he was off I think he was off the 4th and the 5th. And generally when you work graveyard shift, you go start your shift back on Sunday night at, 10, 11 o'clock, whatever.
I think his shift was 10 p.m. to 6 a.m.
Yeah.
In the morning. Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
And I think that was 4th would have been a Friday night. I'm 99.9% sure he was off.
Yep. Yep. I think so as well. 100%. And just to answer another question, Bobby Dassey did retrieve his black Labrador on November the 5th, I think it was. He was a company or officers, I think, went onto the Avery salvage yard and got it for him, his black Labrador on November the 5th, because he was complaining that he had a small puppy, black Labrador, and he wanted to retrieve it. And I do believe that it was retrieved on November the 5th, right? So here is the sewer grate from Barb Yunder's property. But I also found Stevens by complete fluke. Jack61, do you happen to have the little video clip? So there was an exit video done, I think it was November the 12th. I'm not sure the gentleman who did the exit video. Was it Tyson? I think it could have been Tyson.
Yeah, I think it was Tyson.
Tyson. So he went all around the property videotaping, and I watched it, and lo and behold, I found Stephen Avery's sewer cover, right? Because remember, there were people standing over there as well, because that had to be pumped out as well. So we'll just, Jack61, do you have that little video clip?
Yep, I'm getting it pulled up right now if I can get the right buttons pushed here.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yep. So what we've got here, now check this out. You've seen the perspective from the sewer cover from Barb's property. Now this is, it's only a short clip. This is the perspective of the burn pit from Stephen Avery's sewer cover. Jack61, whenever you're ready. Do we have to mute as well?
Yeah, to hear it, you'll have to mute
okay.
Discord and unmute YouTube. All right, here we go. It's not very long. It's only 39 seconds. So here we go. Yep, that's it right there.
Unbelievable how much they destroyed that backyard. Jesus.
They completely destroyed it. But guys, you have to be impressed, right? What a fluky find that was. I was watching it and I thought, oh my God, that's his sewer cover. Jack61.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Definite fluke. Because I've watched this before and I didn't pay attention to it.
Yeah, there you go. So the important point is this. If you were standing at Stephen's sewer cover and also at Barb Yunder's sewer cover, you had a perfect view of the burn pit. And you can see bear, and you could also see the activity of the cadaver dog and scent dogs, right? Which is truly remarkable when you think about it. So guys, yeah, that's incredible. But wait, it gets better. Jack61, are we able to have a look at the next slide, please? Because this is another gold nugget, right? So remember, on the morning of November the 6th, there's no white bucket present at Bear's Kennel. This is November the 6th. And remember, there were two detectives, two law enforcement officers with a video camera. And they filmed around the Avery salvage yard, and they went in Stephen Avery's garage, and they came out of his garage and they videotaped Bear, right? But the important thing is they videotaped behind the kennel, right? And what you note is Bear, obviously very passive. He's not attacking. He's not right in their faces. He is chilled, Susan.
Yeah, tail down, not even paying attention.
None, right? And these guys are standing very close to Bear with their video camera, right? And Bear is not paying any attention to them at all. Jack 61.
Yeah, this is Bear not giving a shit that they're there. He does not care, because if he did, he would be he could reach them right there.
Yes, he could. Yes, he could. Now, so if Bear was a guard dog, you would sack him, right? Because he's not doing his job. He's not paying any attention at all. But this is crucial because if you have a look on the left-hand side, there's no white bucket along the garage wall. None. But there's no white bucket on the other side of Bear's kennel. There's no white bucket there at all. So on the whenever they were filming, it could have been late afternoon. I think the sun was starting to set. It certainly wasn't, I think, 5 or 6 o'clock. Guys who live in Wisconsin, at that time of the year, would about 5 or 6 o'clock would have started to get dark? Would have been
Probably right around 5.
Around about 5. So that's definitely
November.
not 7:30. That's definitely not 7:30 at nighttime. Would you agree?
No, that would be pitch black. 7:30.
Pitch black. All right. So guys, the detectives, when they filmed this aspect of the kennel, there's no bucket, no white bucket. But what you notice on the ground is a blue bucket, which I think contains water, right? It's likely water for Bear. So this is very interesting. Now, wait for it. Jack 61, can we have a look at the next slide, please? So I think you'll agree that when these guys filmed and the photographs of Trooper Reese, there's no white bucket, none in front or on the side of Bear's kennel. Then if we have a look at the next slide, something weird happens. These guys come back with a video camera and they film the burned pit. What do you notice is at the kennel? What do you notice is there now?
Voila, white bucket. Voila,
The
white
white
bucket.
The white bucket is there. All of a sudden, the white bucket is there. So if you have a look at the front, you can see the small bucket in the red square. You can see Bear chilling, sitting down, but you can see it's starting to get a little bit darker. But it can't be 7:30, right? It would have been pitch black. Suddenly, the white bucket appears at the kennel. I haven't read any report at all that someone put that white bucket there. Has anyone ever seen a report, a DCI report? Now remember, this is November the 6th. This is one day before Jost gets there to feed the dogs. So the question is, how did that white bucket get there, Jack 61?
Yeah, I haven't seen anything, Doc.
Now remember, Bear's aggressive. Look where that white bucket is. That's directly where Bear can get access to. Susan.
Well, the photo prior to this, where you showed the video, where they videoed, there were 2 different pictures side by
Correct.
side behind the kennel.
Correct.
If that bucket were there then, you may not see it because it's on the other side of the kennel.
Not from that video, correct. But the early photographs by Trooper Reese show there was no white bucket. So
Earlier in the day. Yeah.
Earlier in the day. So somehow between Trooper Reese and these 2 detectives taking video, the white bucket appears. Do you guys agree? Someone put the white bucket there. Would you guys agree?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
Doc.
So let's go through this. It wasn't Bobby Dassey that put it there because he retrieved his Labrador puppy on November the 5th. It wasn't Bobby Dassey. Both Carla and Barb Yanda, they feed the dogs on November the 6th, correct? But at 7:30, after 7:30, that's not them. Sergeant Jason Jost doesn't feed the dogs until the day after, on November the 7th. So it's not him. So the question is, who left the white bucket near Bear's kennel? Do we know? It's not a family member.
No,
Was it one of the officers?
I don't think we know that.
Jack 61.
Yeah, I've not seen any report that really talks about that at all. In my memory, maybe someone else has read a DCI report that makes some reference to bear and the activity back there, but I haven't.
Interesting, isn't it? Interesting, isn't it? Now, Jack 61, can we have a look at the next slide, please? This is slide C8. Now, guys, take note on C8. This is very, very significant, right? Because on November the 7th, Trooper Reese took a picture, right? On November the 7th, and have a look. You can clearly see the white bucket near the kennel. You can see Bear. And I'll tell you what, this is one of the first times I've ever noted this photograph closely. This was done by Trooper Reese. Because remember, Jack 61, remember, guys, after November the 7th, he doesn't come back until a few days later to take more photographs. Is that correct, Jack 61?
Well, from what we have right now, the 8th and 9th, they take no photographs, which I find really, really
interesting.
You're damn right. So, per your suggestion, I have sent in a open records request requesting the additional photos of the 8th and 9th, because he took photos every damn day he was there, except the 8th and 9th. And I'm sorry, I don't believe it. I do not believe it.
All right. I don't believe it either. But this is a classic. And the reason why this is such an interesting picture is because Jason Jost on this day goes to feed the dogs, including Bear. He wrote it in his report. We don't know what time he fed the dogs, right? But we now know that there's a white bucket right next to the kennel. But if you actually zoom out a little bit, what do you notice is around Stephen Avery's burn barrel? Crime scene tape, right? Siders, Deputy Siders, found, in air quotes, the burnt electronics of Teresa Hallbach in the burn barrel, and it's surrounded by police tape, crime scene tape. And to the left, do you see that guy? Do you see the guy standing to the left of that burn barrel? In his hand, it's the measuring stick. Yeah, remember that stick in which they take 3D images? They're already taking pictures of to get the measurements. Jack 61, can you see him? He's holding the rod.
I can, and that tells me they're using that geodometer, or however you pronounce that.
Yep. Geodometer.
Yeah.
Yep. But there's no one near the burn barrel, right?
No.
So this is meant to have Teresa Hallbach's electronics, camera, and PDA burnt in that burn barrel. And there's a guy with the measuring stick. They're already doing 3D imaging of it. But if you notice, there's no one near the burn pit. There's no crime scene tape, and Bear's still there, right? And no one mentions any bone fragments, and no one mentions any foul odor coming from that burn pit. And there's a guy, 20, 30 meters away, and you've got the photographer taking pictures of the area, and no one sees a bone fragment, and no one mentions any foul odor. Guys, do we have any comments?
Yeah, Doc, and certainly no pile of bones as Sturtevant described at trial. He's sworn testimony. No one says
obvious.
A damn thing.
A very obvious pile of bones, he said.
Yes, that's right.
Yes. So, guys, can you see? We've proven, I believe, with good evidence, using their own photographs, that there were no polar bones in that burn pit. None, right? And look at Bear. Look where Bear is. Bear's at the back. He's not constantly pacing up and down near where the cremains are. Remember, he's an Alsatian dog, a German Shepherd. He's got an incredible sense of smell. He's chilling out. He's paying no attention. So something happened, or something is going to happen. Guys, do you agree? Do you agree, guys? Something is about to take place.
Absolutely.
Jack
Absolutely.
60,
After,
right?
after Cuss Road, all hell breaks loose, literally.
So think about it. This is November the 7th. The search team A is at Cuss Road. There's a clandestine burial site. We know that. All of a sudden, Siders at after 12 o'clock finds the burnt electronics in Stephen Avery's burn barrel, and Jason Jost was told to go and feed the dogs, including Bear, at the burn pit. So guys, remember what I said about planting? You must have access to the material you want to plant. You must have an opportunity to plant, and you must make it obvious so it's found. Does Jason Jost suffice all those three criteria? Yes or no? Let's go around the panel. Let's go around the panel and in chat. Andy B, does Jason Jost suffice all those three criteria? Yes or no? Andy B.
Yes. Yes, I agree.
I don't recall.
I agree too.
Susan.
Yes, Doc. He does.
Jack 61.
Absolutely.
Just Rhonda.
Yes, he does.
Wow. Now, this is not me making it up. Guys, he had even admitted he was there, right? And he's part of search team A. And all of a sudden, you've got the burnt electronics showing up in the burn barrel. And Jason Jost decides he has to feed the dogs, including Bear, at the burn pit. Jack 61.
And everyone, please remember what Doc has already shown. There wasn't shit in that burn pit. We can prove it. There was no pile of bones in that burn pit, as described by Sturdivant, and we can't see anything laying in the grass from the other photos that Trooper Reese took. It's not there.
Correct. 100% correct. So Jack 61, can we have a look at the next slide, please? Number C9. And this is very interesting because Bob Yonder had two dogs, right? And guess what? Trooper Reese photographed them on November the 7th. And again, I've seen these pictures 100 times and the penny never dropped. And here you go. Here are the dogs, Bob Yonder's dogs, right? And if you have a look, there are two white buckets on the ground. Isn't that interesting? So, on November the 6th, Barb and Carla fed her two dogs and Bear. On November the 7th, Trooper Reese goes and feeds these two dogs and Bear. And November the 8th, Barb comes back and refeeds the dogs. So must have...
Doc, you mean Jost fed the dogs?
Just fed dogs on the 7th.
Jost.
Not
on
Reese.
The 7th.
Yeah.
On the 7th. Sorry, Reese took the picture. I've got too many things happening in my head all at once. So the dogs were fed 3 times every day from the 6th, 7th, and 8th, right? So the question is, who told Jost to go feed the dogs? Because I had a DCI report that Carla and Barb fed the dogs on the 6th, right? Now, I can't believe that they would have just given them a couple of handfuls of food. They would have filled up a bucket. They would have filled up a lot of food, a lot of water to last several days. But guys, can you see that this is a perfect ruse for Sergeant Jason Jost to get next to the burn pit by saying, I'm going to feed the dogs, but Bear was aggressive and I had to put the food on the ground. Jack 61.
Well, it goes again to if they had a dog that was knowingly aggressive to these officers that were around this property, and they were heavily around Stevens' property. I just don't, as inept as I think that they were at times, I just don't think D.I. Shutter would have left that bear there if he was actually that aggressive. I don't believe it. I just don't.
Correct. But it's just about to get really freaking weird. Jack 61, can we have a look at the next slide, please? Right. So, we, all of us on the Foul Play team and people in chat, we've looked at these pictures 1,000,001 times, but we've never made the connections until now. Susan.
It's really kind of strange too. If Jost did feed the dogs on the 7th, why let Barb back in to feed the dogs on the 8th? They could have just fed the dogs again.
That's you know why? Because
that makes no sense.
They kept the feeding of the dogs by Jost quiet until he was asked to write a report, right, Jack 61? Because remember in that phone call, what, you're not going to document what you did? Oh,
absolutely.
I suppose
yeah,
there you
absolutely.
go.
And
there you go.
I think there was more conversation that we don't have.
Correct. So Jason Jost got caught out. He goes, shit, he's done a cold burn. I better write something. Now, look at this. This photograph was taken on November the 11th, right? This is the day they brought in the bobcats. Have a look at the white bucket. The white bucket, Jack 61, if you can blow that up a little bit, the white bucket is completely full of dog food, right? That white bucket appeared magically on the late afternoon of November the 6th. Now, are you trying to tell me that somebody went around and filled that bucket up, or was that bucket already filled with food, Jack 61?
Oh, I think it was already filled with food, but you look at that bucket. If that's a 5-gallon bucket, there's at least 3 gallons of dog food in that damn thing.
Yep. 100% correct. So that bucket is nearly full to the brim of dog food. Now, Bear was removed by 2 vets on November the 9th. Is that correct, guys? Have I remembered that correctly? They brought in the vets. We looked at the log-in, log-out sheets. They were there for 7 minutes. They took Bear away. Jack 61?
Yeah, I was just going to say they were only there about 7 or 8 minutes and no problem.
So all of a sudden, you go from Jason Jost, who goes, oh, Bear was aggressive, he was charging, he was nasty, to 2 vets taking 7 minutes to remove the dog. Susan, did you have a comment?
No, Doc.
All right. Now, the bucket, the white bucket, which magically appeared on the afternoon of November the 6th, before Barb got there, the whole thing is damn full of food, right? But this is going to blow your mind, right? Jack 61, if we can have a look at the next slide, right? So, luckily, they took photographs of inside Bear's kennel, right? So we're thinking, wait a minute, there's a big bucket of dog food on the outside, but have a look at this. There's a bucket of dog food inside Bear's kennel. There was no need to feed him. He had a whole bucket of food outside, obviously water, and he had a bucket of food on the inside, right? So the question is this: who put that food there? Was it Barb and Carla on November the 6th? It couldn't have been Sergeant Jason Jost on November the 7th, because remember what he said? They had to keep the dog far away, and they had to put the food on the ground and water. So have a look at this. Or did Barb add that food on November the 8th? But it doesn't make any sense, guys. because Bear obviously has got a full bucket of food outside, a bucket of food inside. There was no need to feed Bear. He had plenty of food. He had plenty of water, Jack 61.
Yeah, I've looked at these photos countless times, and I never really even thought about it. It makes
Yes.
absolutely no sense why a dog would have that much food.
Yes.
It's so strange.
And I have a feeling, because someone asked the question, I think the food is exactly the same. If you could go back and forth between those two buckets, I think they're the same food. So someone's taken a scoop of the food and placed it inside Bear's house. Now, if you're scared of the dog, there's no way. Remember, Jason Jost said he couldn't get, he even admitted he couldn't get close to the white pail where the food was, right, guys? That's what he said. He said we had to keep Bear at a distance to put the food on the ground. So wait a minute. How did that food get, who put the food there? Jack 61.
Yeah, I don't know, but it looks like the same food to me. I was going to switch back and forth a couple times.
Yes. Now, let me, I haven't got the slide, but I'm gonna read what Jost wrote in his report. This is the 7th, November the 7th, and I'll quote, "Due to the aggressiveness of the German Shepherd, I was unable to retrieve the 5-gallon pails which were placed next to the kennel, this being where the food and water are kept. We were able to keep the German Shepherd far enough away from us so I could pour some food on the ground and also fill up a small water dish." Uh-oh. That means that he couldn't have seen the food in the pail and he couldn't have seen the food in the blue bucket. Guys, would you agree? Because if he did, he wouldn't have poured food on the ground. Bear had plenty to eat. Guys, would you agree? Jack 61.
Yeah, absolutely agree.
So, guys on the panel, yeah, Susan.
That's why I'm suspicious that that's when he poured the bones out.
Yep. So, have we actually caught Jason Jost in a lie? Have we caught him out in a lie? Because all he had to do was look in the white bucket, look in the kennel, and say, this dog's got plenty of food. There's plenty of water here. There's no need for me to feed. So did he actually come up with a bullshit excuse as to why he got close to the burn pit? Because
Kay
quite
has a
clearly,
good question. Is there food on the ground anywhere?
I don't see any food on the ground.
I haven't seen that.
I haven't seen any food on the ground.
No, I'll look at the. Yeah, well, I can't do it right now, but I can turn the photos off and do it. But I can check out the other Reese photos at a later point. But I don't remember seeing any food on the ground.
Yeah, right. So what you write it in a report, just like Colburn, saying about how he had to shake the cabinet violently and the key suddenly magically popped out. Well, if somebody questioned Jason Jost, mate, what were you doing at the burn pit on November the 7th? And all he had to say was, I fed the dog. Right? So he's got a perfect, legitimate excuse. And guys, we already have seen the box of bones. You would agree that's not a huge number of bones. Would you guys agree? That's not a huge number of bones, is it?
Oh, I agree. And for the record, they could have come from anywhere.
Correct. And could you have placed those cremains and carried them in a bucket under the guise that you had dog food?
Oh, easily. No problem.
And all you had to do, correct me if I'm wrong here, guys, all you had to do was walk past the burn pit and tip the bucket as if to say, oh yeah, they're just the remnants or remains of the dog food. But in actual fact, you poured the cremains out in the burn pit. right?
no one would have questioned it because he'd already fed the dogs once. So he's like, hey, look, I got to feed these dogs. Or feed the
Correct.
dog. I mean,
Correct. So, Jack 61, if we have a look at the next slide, this really sums it all up, right? So this photograph, C12, this photograph was taken again on November the 11th. That's the day the burn pit was completely destroyed. So here's the question, and I want to ask the panel and people in chat. Did Sergeant Jason Jost actually feed bear near the burn pit, right? When clearly we've shown that bear had food, a whole bucket of food outside, a whole container of food inside. There was a blue pail, a white pail. Likely bear had plenty of water, right? So, one day prior on November the 6th, all the dogs were fed by Carla and Barb. And here's the ultimate question. Who told Jost in the middle of a murder investigation to feed the dogs when not one of them bothered to call a vet to get rid of bear? And Kratz said, oh, no, bear was aggressive, and that's why we didn't find the cremains until November the 8th. Think about it. 5th, nothing. 6th, nothing. 7th, nothing. 8th, Jost finds the first bone. Jack 61.
and even through all of this, even after, even the 8th and on, but even prior, not one comment about odor coming from that pit. Not one.
Nothing. Right? So this is very interesting. And in this photograph, you can see all the buckets and the pails that were recovered, Susan.
Yeah, Duke is saying he thinks there's dog food on the ground by that small white bucket there. Can you zoom in, Jack?
On this photograph here?
I think so.
Okay.
I don't see it. He thought there was a photo that showed food on the ground, though.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd have to look
There's
through.
another photo.
Yeah,
He says there's another photo.
Yeah, I'd have to look through Reese's photos there that he took of the kind of the property. I mean, to me, this particular photo, it's too grainy, it's too pixelated. I don't see any little pellets on the ground in this one, but I'm not saying there's not.
Yep. Correct. But the thing is, right, we don't know whether he put them there as a ruse or whether he genuinely put them there because he wanted to feed bear, right? And remember, the problem is because bear's aggressive, according to Jost, how did the other officers keep the dog at bay while he put some food on the ground? Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
They
He's
were
vicious.
probably giving him some good pet and saying, "Come here, good boy. Come on, what are you doing?"
Exactly. Rubbing his tummy. His tummy. So this is your perfect ruse to actually dump the cremains in the burn pit on November the 7th. Now, people are guilty of going, wait a minute, how did they plant these cremains? Come on. And the answer is in plain bloody sight. That's how, in my opinion, it was done. Yeah. And what you notice, right, Susan? Right, guys? There's no one near the burn pit. You look at Trooper Reese's photographs. One thing you note, right, Jack 61, is an absence of anyone. No one.
Yeah, no one gave a shit about that burn pit. And I'll pull it up here in a minute because I got a clip of it. Remember what Uyghur said in his unfiled warrant.
Yes.
The Disturbed Earth unfiled warrant and number, I don't know which one it is, but he said, in his opinion, because the cadaver dog hit on that Disturbed Earth point, there was
100%.
There was human decay, whatever he said. I'll pull it up here. So, what the fuck did they find there? I'm convinced that they found cremains there. I'm convinced of it.
No, they did find cremains. They even wrote it. Remember what Fallon and and Krat said, they found bones.
Yeah.
Right? So, guys, think about this. And we'll summarize it. The cadaver dogs and the scent dogs made a beeline for the berm and a beeline for Cuss Road. Pagel prevented Loof from crossing the crime scene tape. They found shit at Cuss Road. They found bones, cremains, and I bet you they found the electronics. All in one pile, right? Dumped. Part of her body was cremated. Her bones were there, but also there was something more than just bones, and we'll talk about it in a second. Siders in a bucket probably went to the burn barrel and dumped it and said, oh my God, look at this. There are burnt cremains. There are burnt electronics. One. What does Jost do? He has a bucket containing the cremains, and under the guise of feeding bear, he dumps the cremains in the burn pit. And who is the first person to find a bone on November the 8th? Susan.
Jost. But Doc, I'm just thinking about that report that Jost wrote.
What Jost
And
wrote? Yep.
he said, I was unable to retrieve the 5-gallon buckets, plural.
Correct.
Did he stick another bucket next to the food bucket before the other guy got there with the bones in it, maybe?
I don't know. But
because we only see one 5-gallon bucket, obviously.
There's one bucket. There's one bucket, correct. And it's jam-packed full of dog food, and that will be heavy.
Yeah.
Right? That will be heavy. And all Jost had to do was try and negotiate around the dog and see that the bucket was full of food and said, boys, there's no need to feed this dog. This is in the middle of a murder investigation. He's part of Search Team 8, and he now goes to the burn pit to feed bear. Spare me, guys. Somebody obviously forgot to tell him that, because remember, they keep a log-in, log-out sheet, that Barb and Carla fed the dogs one day prior, and a dog is not going to eat all that food in one day. What did Joe and Mignon say? The dog was constipated, couldn't produce feces. So I probably had a good feed and couldn't do its business. So I'm telling you, November the 7th, which is the same day as Cuss Road, was the perfect opportunity to dump cremains in the burn pit, and Trooper Reese's photos prove there's no bunch of bones in that burn pit on November the 6th. Jack 61.
And here it is on the screen. This is Uyghur's own words.
Yes.
Talking about dog handler Judy Kramer from Great Lakes Search and Rescue. Kramer utilized a trained cadaver dog near the area of disturbed earth located by Bushman. The trained cadaver dog hit, quote unquote, on the area of disturbed earth, indicating that a body or blood had been present in that area.
Incredible.
There it is. Yeah.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Don't worry. Check 61. We're going to go through the whole lot. Don't worry. This chapter's a ripper. But clearly, in my opinion, Jost was part of the right search team in proximity of Cuss Road. Something was found at Cuss Road. Siders, who's part of Search Team A, discovers the burnt electronics in Stephen Avery's burn barrel. Bushman discovers the clandestine burial site. Seglob receives a phone call from Tom Sawinski the day prior about seeing a raffle being pushed onto the Avery salvage yard, and Jason Jost, who's part of Search Team A, decided that somebody told him he had to feed the dogs on November the 7th, while there was a huge number of people at Cuss Road and a helicopter taking over 200 photographs of nothing, right? And Jason Jost on November the 8th is the first person that finds a bone in the grass that's 1 inch long. Wow. Is anyone seeing any red flags popping up or what? But you have to admit, it's very hard to put all of this together because the information is scattered everywhere, right, guys? It's scattered everywhere. There is no single narrative. You have to pull it all together. I've been looking at these photographs. Everyone on the panel has been looking at these photographs. And all of a sudden, boom, there it pops out. Bang. So Bear had a whole white bucket full of food. Bear had a blue bucket full of food inside his kennel, and there were water bowls. Wow. Jack 61.
Well, and look how much is omitted. That we don't
Yes.
know for sure, but I think we can make constructive and informed these leaps of speculation, if you want to call it that. I don't want to state anything that's not true. At the same time, we see end of an event, as you pointed out here several times through these photographs, because there was
Yes.
definitely activity back there that's unexplained. So you can easily
Yes.
make some really informed discussion about it.
100% correct. Now, just to answer some questions in the chat, it was Stephen Avery's burn barrel that had the burnt electronics, because when Siders went up to it, the first thing he did was he pulled out a tire. Remember the tire rim? And he pulled out the tire rim and he put it next to the burn barrel, and he said that he could see the M emblem of the mobile phone in Stephen Avery's burn barrel, right? Wow. And in Yonder burn barrel number 2, there were, I think, 4 pieces of bone, cut, burnt bone that was human in origin in Yonder burn barrel number 2. So the burnt electronics were in Stephen Avery's burn barrel, not in the Yonder burn barrels. Susan.
Did Seiler testify in court?
Yes, he did.
Yeah,
Yes, he
because
did.
I was just reading that, and I think what he said was he was looking into that burn barrel for 5 to 10 minutes
Correct.
before he spotted that Motorola emblem. I mean, give me a break.
Correct. Now, you think about it, right? Stephen Avery had a great big whopping fire that converted Teresa Hallbach, according to the state, to bone fragments. Why is he going to now put electronics in a burn barrel and have another fire going? Wouldn't you put everything together in one spot, burn it all? If you can convert a human being to tiny bone fragments, you're not going to put electronics in a burn barrel and have another fire going. That's going to attract attention. You burn it all in one spot. You pick up all the ash, all the material, put it in buckets, toss it in the Chippewa River or wherever, gone. But are you trying to tell me that Stephen Avery left all these clues for the law enforcement officers to suddenly find? Jack 61.
Bullshit. Absolute rubbish.
It is bullshit. It is bullshit. So guys, let's don't rest on this. Let's have a look at the login, logout sheets, because they tell a lot, right? So Jack 61, are we able to have a look at the next slide, please? Now, it's important to follow the chronology of events, right? Now, luckily, they did log in and log out sheets. Jack 61, the next one is slide C3. Now, check this out. This is November the 7th. Have a look at all the people that log in to the Avery Salvage Yard on November the 7th, right? Look at them all. Now, let's go through some of them. Wiegert, Diedering, Fassbender, Lenk, Colburn, Jacobs, Pagel, Baldwin, and on the other page, Todd Herman. And notice who logs in at 7:38? Mike Bushman. Comes out of the blue. And I think, Jack 61, you had a phone call in which they were trying to get Bushmen to come on board, right? There was police chatter about trying to contact Bushmen.
Yes, they. I don't think. Well, we have. Yes, I don't remember which duty sergeant was on, but one of them did make a. He mentioned that he made a call to Bushman. That's right.
Yep. Now remember, a Bushman, he's in charge of Search Team A, and Duke 11 makes a very important point, and we'll cover it when Jason Jost logs out, right? So look at this. Jason Jost and Dave Siders log in at 7:45 in the morning, at about the same time that Mike Bushman logs in. Then at 7:54, we got Scott Eglob, who's also part of Search Team A. We've got Koenig and Wilterdink. They're the ones that allegedly assist Jost. Right down the bottom, we've got Deb Strauss. She logs in. So Jason Jost logs in for the very first time at 7:45. You have a look at the number of people that descend on the Avery salvage yard on November the 7th, right? Now remember, nothing has been found except the RAV4, right? So Jack 61, can we have a look at the next page, please? C14. So when that slide comes up, Jason Jost logs out at 8:19. He logs out. He goes out of the checkpoint. Then look who logs in. Ryan Hilligus and Scott Blowdorn. Right? Remember Ryan? Remember with Mike Horbach said, no, we weren't there. We weren't there. He logs in at the checkpoint. Jack 61.
What the fuck are they doing there? What are they doing?
So Ryan Hilligus and Scott Blowdorn log in at 9:03, and on the other page, Ryan Hilligus and Scott Blowdorn log out at 9:53. Now remember, Ryan Hilligus is Teresa Horbach's ex-boyfriend. Scott Blowdorn is Teresa Horbach's roommate, and they check in and they check out. And notice in brackets, they're civilians, right? Now, if you're doing a proper crime scene investigation, you don't allow two people who are intimately associated with the victim to come anywhere near the Avery salvage yard. And Ryan Hilligus, he's the one that gave the map, the mobile phone, the camera, and the direct phone number of Sheriff Pagel to Pam Sturm, and Pam Sturm is the one that finds a RAV. Wow. So these two guys are on the Avery salvage yard. Then, if you look further down, Julie Kramer, Robert Kramer with their dogs, they come in. Then you've got Jason Jost, who comes back in. This is the second time he logs in at 10:25. Susan.
I was just going to say Ryan and Scott were there for 50 minutes.
Correct.
What the hell were they doing?
I got no idea.
When Doc sent me these slides, I'm sorry, Doc. When Doc sent me these slides, I looked at them like, what the fuck were they doing there for 50 minutes?
Correct. They were there. And now Sarah Fausk with her dog, remember Loof, the bloodhound? She's there, right? There's a lot of people who all of a sudden have descended upon the Avery salvage yard on November the 7th. And Jack 61, can we have a look?
Because that says Kozlowski is Canine Search.
Yes.
Right above his name.
Correct. There were a lot, remember, was it November the 6th? They had 19 dog handlers on November the 6th. But there were plenty of dog handlers on November the 7th. Remember, Bear's still there. So we have a look at the next slide, C15.
I'll pull that up. Doc. But just everyone keep in mind, what kind of coverage did the Rudy case get?
Zero.
Just think about it. And here, we've got dozens of people just on this one page that descended
Correct.
on that property.
Correct. With Christine Rudy, there was bugger all. And
Yep.
please, a life is a life. All lives are important. And Christine Rudy was 6 months pregnant at the time. And what happened to Christine Rudy is a mirror image of what happened to Teresa Horbach. Shot, dismembered, cremated, and parts of her body missing. Jack 61.
We all count, or none of us do.
And have a look how many people are at the Avery salvage yard. There were over 200 people per day searching, right? So at 11:32, Jason Jost signs out. At 2:14 on the other page, Jason Jost signs back in. He's coming in and out. He's coming in and out all the time. And the question is, why is he doing this? Right? We don't know at what time he fed the dogs, but he's checking in and he's checking out, right? And if
He also does not have a queso babysitter with him.
No, and he's MTSO, right?
Yep.
In fact, the irony is all of Search Team A is what? MTSO. All of them. Jack 61.
I have a question. I guess maybe I just went brain dead here, but who's this Howard Kizelinsky? Is he MTSO?
That I don't know. I do not know who.
Anyone? That name just is not ringing a bell.
I think it said that in his report. Did he help him feed the dogs?
Was it Kizelinsky?
No,
I'd have to look at it.
No. It was Koenig and
Koenig.
the other gentleman.
And Wilter Dink or whatever it is.
Dink. Correct. That allegedly helped Jason Jones feed the dogs. Right?
So I'm wondering who the fuck this Howard Kizelinsky is.
Yeah, I don't know. I do not know. But the amount of information that you can garnish from these log in and log out, and if you track the people, it's mind-blowing. So Jason Jost is coming in and coming out of the checkpoint, right? So if we have a look at the next slide, Jack 61, which I think is C16, Jason Jost checks out again at a 3:01, and he checks back in at 3:39. So he's going in and he's going out of the checkpoint. So that's the fourth time. And on the fifth time, he checks out at 3:55 p.m. and he checks back in at 4:15. So guys, what's he doing? Has anyone got any idea, any comments, guys, in chat or on the panel? What's he doing? He's part of Search Team A. Search Team A is Cuss Road and the cornfield. And we know that Jason Jost, on this day, goes and feeds bear at the burn pit at Jack 61.
Yeah, I don't know, Doc. If he'd came in and out, maybe once, twice at most, I guess you really couldn't question it too much because they're doing this and that. But this many times, I don't know. There's something fucking weird going on here.
Now, hold on. He now checks in for the fifth time, right? At 4:15, he checks in. And Jack 61, if we can have a look at the final slide, this is the point that Duke was making. If we have a look at C17, when he finally checks out, look who he checks out with. Siders and Bushman.
That's interesting.
All three of them check out at exactly the same time. And Siders, Jost, and Bushman are all part of Search Team A. I'm not sure what time Seglob. I'm not sure if he's on that page or not, but he's got to check out at some stage as well. Susan, did you have a comment?
Not at this time, Doc.
All right. Is anyone here got any red antennas going up at this stage? Andy B, what about yourself?
Oh, dear me. I think that Jost has been blessed by the god of Pam to be able to float around the place and go wherever he pleases and do whatever he wants.
He's going
It's,
in and out of that
it,
property.
uh,
Okay.
yeah,
So he went in and out 5 times. Jack 61.
very suspicious.
Yeah, interesting. Jack 61.
A lot of heavy hitters here in the late afternoon, Doc. If you just read like our grocery list here, just a few
Correct.
reading down. Let's just name a few. Some of these people, I'm not sure who they are. There's Tyson Schwartz. I've heard that name. There's Todd Herman, and Deb Strauss. She's in and out here. Thought I saw.
That looks like Vogel. Different Vogel.
Oh, yes. Somebody asked the question, did Jost get promoted? Oh, yes, he did.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yes, he did.
There's Fassbender.
Yes,
There's
promotion.
Dennis Jacobs is in at 5:26 or 36, whatever that says. It's got to be dim or damn near dark at that time of year in Wisconsin. I can tell you that absolutely for a fact. And then, okay, I guess that's all. But still, this late in the afternoon on the 7th, there's a lot of what I would consider heavy hitters on the property.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So
What time? What time did they find the electronics in the burn barrel?
Would have been in the afternoon, and it was at 12 o'clock.
12
or 12:09. 12:09, I think it was.
What Jost, where Jost was then?
Yep, very interesting. Very interesting. Because there is a Calumet report, or there's a sheet, and we'll go over it, when Siders actually found the burnt electronics, because Bushman wrote it down. He actually wrote down the time on that sheet, and we'll go over it. Well, look, guys, what I like to do, I like to just do a few more slides, and I want to call it quits because I don't want to rush this. We've covered a lot of really good stuff, but that was November the 7th, right? Nothing apart from the burnt electronics were found. Now, what I want to do is look at the login sheets and log out sheets on November the 8th. Now, this is important because on November the 8th, that's where all the forensic evidence falls from the sky. You've got the key, you've got the plates, and you've got the bones. All on one day. Right, Jack 61? Right, guys? Anyone slightly suspicious? You've got all the heavy hitters, which are on the Avery salvage yard 1 day prior. You've got Jason Jost, who's part of search team A. He goes and feeds the dog bear at the burn pit. The very next day, the bones come raining down. Jack 61.
Yep, it's like manna from heaven. It's a
Yep.
What would you call it? A lottery day for Calumet and MTSO and the DCI. God, guys, look what all we've got. We're done. Oh,
Correct.
by the way, MTSO, get the fuck off the property and don't come back because there's nothing
Correct.
from these guys after the 8th. Nothing. So they were told to get off.
But who else did they remove after the bones were found? Bear.
Bear's gone
Bear.
too.
Right? Because they don't need him anymore. The big aggressive dog got taken out in 7 minutes by 2 vets because they already found the bones. And what is remarkable is this. Guys, the burn pit gets processed not once, not twice, but 3 times. 3 times. And where the shit really hit the fan was when Pevito came on the scene. And
That's
we'll
right.
talk about that. Oh my God, you guys have got no idea what happened there. There's some real weird stuff going on here. And I just want to give a big shout out to Duke 11, he's doing some top tier research in the sifting that took place. And we're trying to negotiate with him to do a podcast with us. And wouldn't that be awesome to get his research out? Because we've been discussing some certain topics about this, and some of the stuff, the material that Duke is finding is incredible. And we'd love to hear from him, right, guys? We would love to get him on the channel, right, guys?
Absolutely. Yes. Come
That's right.
on, Duke.
Come on, Duke. We can do it.
The invitation is there. Get your slides ready and boom, we'll go for it. So, Jack 61, can we have a look at the next slide, which is D1? Now, this is very interesting, right? This is the day that the cremains are actually found, right? This is slide D1. We'll just wait for Jack 61. Now, look who comes on. I won't go through everybody. We've got Sarah Fausk with Loof, right? Now, remember, Loof was at Cuss Road the day prior. So Sarah Fausk comes back on. Deb Strauss checks in.
Doc,
Sturdivant.
I also want to point. I just also want to point out, Reimer. This guy is everywhere.
Oh yeah. Yes.
Everywhere.
Yes. And Duke talks a lot about him. He's a very important character. Just Rhonda.
I've seen a comment by Duke 11 a couple of times, and now he's got it in all caps. And then he said that this is really important to mention. He said MTSO dispatch records show Jost didn't clear scene until 10:30 p.m. on the 7th.
Whoa. That's not what the logout sheet says. Yes.
Yeah.
Nope.
Right?
That's interesting as hell.
There's a discrepancy there.
Oops.
Isn't that interesting? Oops. Yes, correct. And again, it's going to be dependent on the honesty of the officer, right? Because the Avery salvage yard is a very open place. You can just walk in and walk out if you don't check in, right? Isn't that interesting? Thank you so much. Thank you, Just Rhonda. So we've got Sturdivant. He checks in. Jason Jost checks in at 8:56. All right, in the morning. Joe Mignon checks in, right, from Brilliant, right? She checks in. And if we have a look at the next page, slide D2, we'll just wait for that to come up. So a lot of people are coming onto the Avery salvage yard on November the 8th, right? Now, have a look at this. We've got Jody Disher, who has her own bloodhound, I think called Raz. We'll talk about that. The crime lab checks in, right? So you got Erdl, you got Kate, you got Zhang, and Zhang, right, Jack 61, right, guys, is the photographer. So the photographer's with him from the crime lab. Jason Jost checks out at 11:52. And on the other page, you've got both Julie Kramer and Grace Salm. They're from Great Lakes Search and Rescue. So the dogs, you've got both cadaver dogs, you've got both scent dogs on the property. Jason Jost at 12:17 checks back in. So he's going in and he's going out, right? Remember, one day prior, he allegedly was at the burn pit feeding bear, right? And he's part of Search Team A. So if we have a look at D3, we'll just wait for that to come up. You've got, you've got a lot of people coming in. I'll just wait for D3 to come back up. So with D3, you got Jason Jost, who checks out at 5:20. You've got Jody Disher, who checks out at 5:26. That's the canine handler, with the bloodhound. And you've got the crime lab people that check out at 5:55. Now remember, both Jost, Sturdivant, and the crime lab guys, they process the burn pit, right, Jack 61, right, guys? They process the burn pit, and the remarkable thing is this: no one takes a photo, and there's no video, and because it's dark, they just leave. They don't call in the lights. They just leave the burn pit after sifting the ash. Jack 61.
Yeah, they just throw a tarp over it and move on, which is
Correct.
quite amazing to me, considering what they allegedly found. Sturtevant's right there. He checks out at 1755. You got a lot of heavy hitters on this day too.
Correct. Now remember, this is the day that Jason Jost finds the first bone, not in the burn pit, but in the grass, 8 feet south of the burn pit. Susan, do you have a comment on that one about that
Yeah,
bone
yeah,
fragment?
whatever, Doc.
You're not impressed. You're not impressed.
No.
All right. So have a look at this. Now, this is the next slide, Jack 61, D4, after the report has been written, right? So Jason Jost writes this in the MTSO report. I don't recall. Do you see slide D4? I don't recall. Are you there?
I'm sorry. Somebody was talking to me. Yes, I'm here.
Do you see slide D4?
Yes.
Can you read it out?
Sure. Sergeant Jost, started to piece all this information together. I felt this area, if not already looked at, should be checked for any type of evidence. When Officer Mignon returned, I spoke with her about my feelings of that burn pile. She stated I can't see. Okay, thank you. She stated she also felt that something was unusual with that area. Upon returning to the command post, I made contact with KSO Lieutenant Sipple. I explained to him that I felt the burn pit area specifically should be checked further. He responded to the property with me. Without disturbing the area, we walked close to the burn pit to take a further look. I mentioned to him that due to the aggressiveness of the dog, it was very possible that the other canine handlers may not have walked their dogs this close to that area. This also may have hindered officers from specifically going to this location.
Holy shit.
He doesn't mention that bone out in the yard, does he, Doc?
No, not on this part.
No.
But guys, you got any comments on what he just wrote?
TMI.
Anything else? Now, isn't there a couple of gold nuggets right here? Right? Yeah. Notice how he said, because he would have noted the dogs. He said, oh, maybe because of Bear, the aggressiveness of Bear, that the other dogs couldn't get to the burn pit, because he's putting 2 and 2 together. He's going, wait a minute, we've got human cremains here. How come the burn pit wasn't hit upon by the cadaver dogs and the scent dogs? And he gave the excuse because Bear was aggressive.
Did he have a meeting with Kratz that night? Prior.
Correct, because that's exactly what Kratz said in the trial, that Bear was so aggressive that he shooed away all the dogs, everything else. And I'll prove it to you that it's all bullshit. X61.
I think even, let's just say, okay, Bear was aggressive and barking. They would have still indicated on that pit if there had been cremains in there.
Yep. 100%. So guys, I want to do one more slide. Guys, are you happy with that? That we can just do one more slide? Because I want to keep this nice and neat, because the next section is we go into the dogs. Guys, are you happy with that?
And we can do as many slides as you want to do, Doc. It's entirely up to you.
All right. So, guys, check this out. Now, this is an incredible picture and summary of what we've just been discussing. Let's work this one out. So, we've got Jason Jost, who's at the burn pit, admittedly at the burn pit on November the 7th. He said he had to be there because he had to feed Bear. But he said because Bear was so aggressive, he had to put food on the ground and water. But there's no doubt that Jason Jost was at the burn pit. Jason Jost never said, I saw bones on November the 7th. He said that he saw things that were tied up in Bear's chain. Susan, do you have a comment?
He was also there to relieve Minion.
Correct.
For lunch.
Correct. 100%
45
correct.
minutes, I think. Yeah.
Correct. So they were emptying the septic tank, etc., etc. So one day after, Jason Jost discovers a bone fragment 8 feet south of the burn pit, right, in the grass. And that bone fragment was 1 inch and it had a red flag. The question is, who put the red flag there? Right? Correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but was there a coroner or a forensic anthropologist on the Avery salvage yard at any stage?
No.
No.
None.
But that is covered in the trial about those red flags.
Correct. But
And
who,
it's later in the afternoon.
correct. But who put the red flag there on November the 8th?
I think it was the crime lab people.
On November the 8th?
Later in the afternoon, yeah.
But Jason Jost discovered the first bone fragment. Who put the red flag next to that one?
That's a story.
That's correct.
Yeah, that's the story.
Right?
You got it, sister.
Right?
Yep.
So how did Jason Jost happen to walk in the grass and discover this bone fragment, and then started to point towards the burn pit, and Sturtevant goes, oh, yeah. I saw bones and I saw them intertwined in the tire wires, and I saw bones in a pile in the middle of the burn pit, right? To me, that's a red flag straight away. So upon discovering of that bone, Jost is telling everyone, I think we better check the burn pit. We need to check it for evidence, right? And what does Jason Jost do and Sturtevant? An hour and a half later, the crime lab team shows up with their sifting equipment and they sift the ash in the burn pit. They get the human or the bones at that stage. They put them in a box and they send them eventually to Dr. Bennett one day after. So they've already sifted the ash. Now have a look at this picture here, right? What the state are trying to tell you is that the bones were not discovered earlier because of Bear. And Bear was there from November the 5th to November the 9th. And it took 7 minutes to remove Bear. But Jost is saying that Bear was so aggressive, no one could get next to the burn pit. But have a look at this picture. You can see where Teresa's RAV4 was parked when she took the photographs. According to Bobby Dassey, this is where he saw her park, right next to the brown maroon van, where she got out, took photographs. Stephen paid her, and according to Stephen, she had left. Have a look at the yellow inner circle. That's approximately where Bear's chain reached. Right? Now, are you trying to tell me, and Jack61 made the point, are you trying to tell me that no cadaver or scent dog in that red outer radius didn't alert at the burn pit full of human cremains and some of Teresa's clothing and clothing rivets, other bits and pieces. Why didn't any dog, cadaver dog or scent dog, give an alert pointing at the burn pit? Can anyone answer that question?
I can.
Jack 61.
Because it
Jack
wasn't
61.
in there. Because it wasn't in there. It's all on paper. Everything's on paper.
Now, isn't that interesting? But to make matters worse, what did they say the dogs did? The dogs made a beeline. See on the right-hand side, see that berm, that track? That's where they concentrated their alerts, on that berm. Now, wait a minute. That's nowhere near the burn pit. You get it, guys? How can a cadaver dog who's trained to detect human decomposition not given a, even if the dog was 2 or 3 meters away from bear, you have to admit, a pit full of human cremains would have alerted the dogs. The dogs would have gone crazy. But they didn't go there. They went to the berm. To make matters worse, they didn't even go to the burn barrel. What did Loof do? Loof went past the burn barrel and went straight down to Cuss Road. So, guys, the dogs are telling you a different narrative to what the state proposed. Guys, would you agree? Yes or no?
Absolutely, yes. The dogs didn't hate Stephen Avery. They weren't after Stephen Avery, and they didn't care. They just did their job and were, they were buried, actually, ignored.
Unbelievable. And guys, that's such a good picture because you can see it from the air, all the space around the burn pit. Now, you trying to tell me that a cadaver dog or a scent dog wouldn't have told the owners, I actually want to go there. I want to go there. They didn't. They went to the berm. They went to Cuss Road. That is truly remarkable, guys. All right. Well, look, I know the podcast's a little bit shorter, but I want to really leave it there because we're going to go into a totally new section. But guys, what did you think? What did you think, guys?
Eye-opening.
What'd you think? Eye-opening?
I do.
Excellent, Doc. Yeah.
Yep. Truly, truly remarkable.
Yeah.
The dogs gave it away. The activity of the dogs gave it away. And Jost admitted being at the burn pit one day prior to him finding the first bone. Susan.
Yeah, he gave it away too.
He gave it away. He had to write the report because in those phone calls, remember the exchange between the other officer and Jost? Oh,
Sipple.
you mean I need to document? Sipple. Correct. All right. Well, look, guys, I think we'll close it here. I hope that you've enjoyed the podcast. We'll continue next week, of course. But if you've enjoyed the podcast, please subscribe. Hit the thumbs up button if you enjoyed the podcast, and please share our podcasts. All right. So, guys, before we close the podcast, I'd love to go around the panel. Tell us how you're coming along and what you're doing and whether you've enjoyed the podcast. And it's truly remarkable, the stuff that's finding, and I can't wait for Duke to come on with his information, and I'm sure it'll be mind-blowing as well. NDB, how are you coming along?
Oh, I'm coming along fine, thank you, Doc. Another great podcast. There's lots of questions with the, the dogs and the trails and everything, because you've got like Brutus on the 5th, like kind of going to one of the yonder burn barrels and alerting on there. Yeah, it's like kind of it's all strange, and kind of piecing it together logically in your head is really hard to do. But the information about like Jason Jost that you come up with is really, really interesting, and is certainly a good likely candidate for doing for being involved in some kind of planting. So yeah, another great one, Doc. Thank you very much.
Thank
And
you
good
so
night,
much, Andy.
everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. But look at the picture that we just put up previously, right? Now, according to Julie Kramer, Brutus went close to that white propane tank. They heard the dog. They heard the dog and stopped. But what Andy B said was remarkable. Brutus went all the way to the burn barrels and gave an alert on the burn barrels. And the under burn barrels were further away than the burn pit that contained all those bones. Guys, do you get it? So how on earth did Brutus not go crazy? No. Sorry, Julie. I want to go there. No. Brutus went to the under burn barrels, which were further away. Isn't that remarkable? If those cremains were there on November the 5th, there's no way the dog would have gone anywhere else. The dog would have given high alerts. Sorry, I want to go to the burn pit. Yeah, there's another dog there, but I smell something. I smell human decomposition. And Andy B, you just made an incredible, great point. Brutus bypassed the burn pit and went straight to the under burn barrels. Andy B, any other comments?
No, not really. It's like it's one of those things where it's like it's hard to make sense of everything. Because, for instance, there was in Stephen's bedroom on the 5th, the report says it kind of the Brutus got a little bit edgy in there, but there was no alert. But there was an alert in the bathroom.
Yeah,
but there was no obvious in the report. It says there was no obvious like signs of anything. So, like, what do you make of that? That's
Well, put it this way. Put it this way, Andy B. Brutus was sensitive enough. His nose was sensitive enough to detect a drop of blood. A drop of blood that was on the ground in the bathroom. Are you trying to tell me that Brutus just walked past a whole pile of cremains? But it actually gets worse. There were more than just cremains. We'll talk about that in the next podcast. So how did Brutus bypass the burn pit, go to under burn barrel number 2 that had 4 bones, and gave an alert inside Stephen Avery's bathroom with just a couple of droplets of blood, and didn't alert in Stephen Avery's master bedroom where all this mutilation, rape, and mayhem took place?
Yeah, that's what's very interesting and confusing about the report. So yeah, like, it would be nice to make sense of all that.
Correct.
One time. Yeah. Okay.
But
thank you.
Thank you, Andy. No, I was going to say, I like the way we're breaking it down. And that picture that we put up before is fantastic because it shows the whole dynamics of the area in one hit.
Yeah.
Right? You even see the septic tanks, everything in one
and
spot.
Is it the 8th was the berm alert? The berm alerts with the scent and the cadaver dogs. Was that the 8th?
Correct. And next week, we'll talk about one of the dogs that actually went there as well.
Yeah, like, why nothing before the 8th? You know what I mean? Like, because the dogs were in that area. Why nothing before the 8th?
Very interesting. Very interesting. We'll cover it next week. Thank you so much, Andy B.
No problem.
Don't recall. Thank you. I don't recall. What about yourself?
I really enjoyed it once again, and I've heard that name Jost ever since I, first started getting involved in this community, but I didn't know much about him. I guess I did know he had something to do with seeing the bones, but now now that name fits. I can see where it fits in now. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't recall. Thank you. Susan, what about yourself?
Well, it is puzzling to me that the cadaver dog hit on the Dassey barrel on the 5th.
On the 5th.
That's puzzling.
Correct.
And also her live scent on the berm is a head scratcher too.
Correct. Now, the burn barrels, they weren't searched until I think much later. And remember, Brutus hit on 2 of the burn barrels. And if there's anything that's got blood in it or decomposition, human decomposition, it's got to detect.
Tampons. Correct. Or
correct.
That's true.
Correct.
That's true.
Correct. So we don't know we don't know officially when the bones were detected. The actual date that those bones were detected. That's the critical thing.
That's right. That's right. Okay.
Correct.
So that kind of clears that in my mind. But the live scent on the berm is confusing.
Disturbing as well. Disturbing.
Okay. Anyway, great. You got my, head spinning again, Doc. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Susan.
Yeah.
Jack 61. Thank you. Jack 61.
Oh yeah, this is hard to take it all in because it's not just one event. It's the result of many events that lead to this trail here, and unless you really, you have to understand that. If you don't, it's like, it can get really bypassed, which was the intent. The prosecution, and really even law enforcement really buried the dogs. They didn't really want them present in the investigation and what they were actually doing, because the dogs are unbiased. They don't care. They're just doing their job. That's what they're trained to do. They're hardworking dogs. And understanding about Cuss Road and this complete nonsense that these cops would stay there all day into the evening, dark, and put up lights, and they find nothing. Bullshit. It would have taken them an hour at most to unearth that whatever was in that pit and that clandestine burial site. Sorry, I don't believe it. Not one. And blocking off roads, not allowing anyone but certain personnel in there. Bullshit. Wouldn't allow the dog back in there. No way. Don't believe it.
Correct.
So understanding all these events to here we are on the 8th, and all of a sudden the pit becomes of real interest. Sorry, I don't bite. Great podcast, very informative, and a very pointed finger at Mr. Jost. A very pointed finger. Right?
Correct. I'm not insinuating he's done anything,
but
he had the means and opportunity,
and probably motive.
Yeah. And search team A all happened to be MTSO.
That's right. And that's
amazing.
It is. It really is. So all that has to be taken into account. And I'm anxious for everyone to join us for the next one and dive a little deeper into this. Looking forward to next week. And I really want Duke to come on. That's, whatever you guys want to do, we'll get it arranged whenever.
Correct. One of the hardest aspects to really understand are the burn barrels and the burn pit. It's a complete, utter clusterfuck. If you've ever tried to follow what's going on, it's very hard because you've got tag numbers with tag numbers. You've got tarps within tarps. It's very, very confusing. And so what we're trying to do is to distill it down piece by piece and find the weakest link, because I'm telling you right now, they've hung themselves. And Jason Jost just opened the door.
Well,
Just
yeah,
opened.
I mean, if anyone that's really followed the property tags, you have to understand what Doc's talking about here. They would have one property tag. They would get it and dissect it, and then parts of that property tag will become yet another property tag out of that.
That's correct. That's correct.
It's
That's
crazy.
correct.
It's absolutely nuts what they did. So anyway,
That's correct.
yeah, excellent stuff. And
Thank you.
again, yeah, absolutely. And again, invitations out to Duke Juke. One last
Oh, no
thing for
question.
yeah for tomorrow, we're going to continue on with the miscellaneous calls of MTSO from the 2022 Open Records request, and we'll see where we get with that. There's been some really interesting calls.
Fantastic, fantastic. I think the genesis of this setup definitely involves the RAV4 and the burn pit. They're
Yep.
it's all connected. And I think once we find that thread to unlock the burn pit, the whole thing will collapse. The entire thing will collapse.
Yep.
Right? And the dogs are telling a different story, a different narrative. And I think there's a lot of very important embedded confessions in what Sturtevant says, what Jost says, and what Pevito says. And that's coming up.
And what Ertl does, and what Ertl doesn't say.
100%. 100%. Thank you so much there, Jack.
Yeah, thanks, Doc.
When is your next open mic?
Open mic tomorrow at 5 Central.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Jack 61. And next we have Just Rhonda. Just Rhonda, how are you coming along?
Doc, thank you. I'm doing okay. I'm having asthma for some reason, out of character or out of the norm. That's kind of got me a little grumpy and irritable. Anyway, it's besides the point. Yeah, great information tonight. This is like I said, I maybe gave a 1 for what I knew about Jost, and wow, that was amazing and so informative. And it just kind of like, now it's like pieces are starting to fit the puzzle all over again with more logic and reasoning. And I find it very interesting. So yeah, great job. And, for the information with Duke Juke, I can't
Oh,
wait. I
fantastic.
can't wait to get him on the panel and, listen to what he's got to share. I think it's going to be amazing. So, and I just want to drop another thank you to Foul Play, to Jack for streaming my channel when I have a live to Foul Play. I think it helps because there's such a much more huge, diverse audience in Foul Play that may
Yes.
know nothing about Daniel's case. This helps with
Correct.
that. So it means a great deal to us, and I really, really appreciate it. And those that have come from Foul Play to get more information about Daniel's case, I really appreciate it. And I'm just going to put this out there right now. I am biased. I am absolutely 100% biased to Daniel's innocence. So if anybody comes into my channel or watches from Foul Play expecting to get, you're going to get the two sides, but you're also going to get my very strong one-sided opinion based on research and documents and transcripts of my innocence for Daniel. So just wanted to put that out there. That's just the way it is. And
you've put in
nothing
a
is going
huge amount of
nothing,
work.
yeah, well,
You've
and
put in
nothing's going
a huge
to
amount of
change
work.
my opinion of that. Well, and Kay and Cherie and
Oh, yes.
and Jack, they're helping out as well. And it's a shitty deal that Daniel got, and
Yes.
there's so much bias against his innocence out there that I am willing to go toe to toe with anybody and, you know,
And you
and
could.
argue
Cool.
any point.
You
So
could. And
I want to,
thank,
yeah.
thank you, Just Rhonda. Yeah, we'll try and do our very best to help out your endeavors and research. That's an incredibly hard case. Now, look, guys, I've got a whole panel here, and look how we're working on the Stephen Avery Brendan Dassey case, piece by piece. Just Rhonda has got an even more complex case to deal with. Even I can't put my head around it. I've examined the DNA material, and the DNA material is very straightforward. It was complete bullshit. What was presented in court is complete garbage, right?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, we
But
appreciate that, the work you did on that, because I think that really even opened our eyes to the real truth of what the DNA was saying, because
correct.
we knew what we knew, but we didn't know what you know and showed
Correct.
to us, further proved to us.
When you spot it, it drops out. Boom, easy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and it was, I mean, once the way you did break it down and explain it, it was simple. I mean, it looked simple.
It was
And
not complex at all. Nah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So anyway, I just want to, I know I keep saying it, but I just want to, I'll say it every week because it really is important, um, to um, be able to, show more facts. We just finished reading the transcripts, or the pertinent transcripts, of one of the accusers over the last week, and there's more of that to come. And I think when people see us reading transcripts, it's a little bit different than just us talking, saying the words. So anyway, I want to
Correct.
say thank you to everybody in Foul Play for helping out with that as well.
Pleasure. Thank you so much. And just a quick shout out for Jeff Jones' channel. Just check out his channel, because both myself, Jack61, Kelly, Big Jeff, and Jeff, of course, I think next week might be our last recording for discussing a murder. We've done like about 1.5 years worth of podcasts, and they've been really well received. It's been really, really great to discuss Man 1 and Man 2. But I really enjoy what we're doing here at the moment, taking apart the state's case piece by piece. And I think we've got about 1 or 2 more podcasts to go to complete this chapter. And boy, I can't wait for Convicting a Murderer to come out, and let's see what they have to say. All right, guys, look, again, I'd like to thank everyone on the panel for their wisdom, their knowledge, their really good questions, and also everyone in chat. And can't wait for Duke 11 to come on and do a podcast with us and discuss the sifting, the shenanigans that took place at the burn pit. And I promise we're going to continue all of that next week. We're going to get really into the nitty gritty and find out even some more amazing stuff. Again, thank you so much, guys. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you.
And this has been a Foul Play production.